Over 2 millennia, the Jiangnan mountain range in Shaanxi Province, China, has served as a sanctuary for Taoist hermits. For centuries, they have chosen a reclusive existence, distancing themselves from society for various reasons. Some adhere to a spiritual path, seeking inner enlightenment, while others engage in contemplation of the distant world. There are also those compelled by political dissent. Regardless of the reasons behind their chosen path of seclusion, hermits may have discovered a new world, a world of profound depth and integrity. The appearance of hermits across various human cultures throughout history is not surprising. Another notable example is the Christian desert mothers like Syncletica in Alexandria, who left the city to spend the rest of their lives in a tomb. The Hindu philosopher Ramana Maharshi, who meditated for many years in a temple, and Rabbi Yosef Yazel Horowitz, who lived in seclusion for a significant part of his life, exemplify individuals who pursued lives of solitude. While a closer relationship with the divine and the prospect of enlightenment may have been the primary reasons for these hermits' chosen path, there is also a more worldly reason why spending time alone can be beneficial. It offers an opportunity for self-transformation. There is a unique power in experiencing solitude if we approach it wisely. Guided by numerous psychological studies as well as philosophical and spiritual teachings such as Buddhism, we can discern the value of solitude. However, this video does not advocate becoming a hermit or isolating oneself from society in an unhealthy and destructive manner, nor does it offer any advice on this matter. Loneliness can be seen as a versatile tool, capable of yielding both positive and negative outcomes, depending on how we wield it. This video explores the benefits that loneliness can bring. The information presented is primarily based on the author's theories and observations, supported by various sources. 1. Opportunity for deeper self-exploration. When many people think about understanding themselves, they often consider characteristics or traits they perceive as distinctive. This may include recognizing traits such as, I am confident, I am generally cheerful, I am not easily bothered. However, those following the Buddhist path approach this differently. While they may not believe in the existence of a fixed self, they still practice meditation to explore the true nature of existence, including the intricacies of thoughts and emotions that we often refer to as the self. In another video about meditation, we've seen that the goal of meditation isn't just about relaxing the body and mind but also about gaining deeper insight into oneself and transforming the mind. Meditators pay attention to the processes, thoughts, and emotions within the body as well as the surrounding environment and their reactions to it. In the case of loneliness, the main benefit is providing them with conditions to observe and understand themselves more profoundly. In a quiet environment, they can see more clearly what's happening in their mind and body, something that's often not possible in the noisy and busy life when interacting with others. They may ask themselves, why do I feel this way? Where does this anxiety come from? If constantly distracted by external influences, it's difficult to understand one's thoughts and emotions clearly. In solitude, when we sit alone, we have the opportunity to explore the causes of the uncomfortable mental states that we often try to avoid by indulging in everyday distractions. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. The life of a person is a direct result of their thoughts. According to the perspective of the Buddha, we are what we think. All that we are experiencing is created by our thoughts. Therefore, to control our experiences, we must control our minds. However, this is not an easy path. To achieve true understanding of oneself, we must surely confront our inner challenges, sometimes referred to as inner demons. We see that this rings true with the mechanism of addiction, which is an amplified way of seeking pleasure to escape the present moment. According to Buddhist teachings, Stoic philosophy, and many other perspectives on the reality of human existence, the present moment is where everything unfolds. In fact, what's important is not just focusing on what's happening externally, but even more crucial is looking inward, where we often pay little attention: our thoughts, emotions, and moods. For example, when we recall a sad event from the past, it's not just the event itself that triggers negative emotions, but also how we react and deal with those emotions. However, the thoughts and emotions related to that painful event are still present in the present moment. In this case, a drug addict will immediately choose to use the addictive substance they've chosen, not because they enjoy it, but to escape the current pain. But what thoughts trigger the addict? What emotions are at play? Are they engaging in any negative self-talk? This is true self-understanding according to Buddhist philosophy. Ideally attainable in solitude, where we can exert self-control without distraction. 2. Opportunity to let go of fixed beliefs and groupthink. When interacting with many people, it's easy to get caught up in pre-established belief systems. Ideas can spread like a contagion, especially when we communicate with those who share the same views. History is replete with countless cases of people blindly adhering to their collective belief systems to the extent that they cannot be open to different perspectives. Media, including online platforms, play a significant role in this process by constantly feeding us information. Through frequent exposure to specific media outlets, we easily absorb opinions, viewpoints, and mindsets from others. Then, like echoing what we've heard, we begin to propagate these ideas within our environment, but in reality, they are not our own. We can also observe that people are often drawn to sources of information that align with the data stored in their minds. When continuously exposed to viewpoints similar to what we already know, while disregarding other perspectives, we only reinforce our current beliefs. That's how echo chambers are formed, the ultimate manifestation of groupthink, where individuals with shared beliefs gather to support and reinforce their collective ideology, regardless of its shortcomings. On the other hand, solitude allows us to distance ourselves from those echoing chambers, as well as from the influence of media we're exposed to. When we spend time alone to reflect on ideas that we often take for granted, we can explore whether these ideas truly reflect our personal experiences and are based on factual information. We can contemplate the usefulness and destructiveness of ideas that breed hatred, what impact they will have on us and the world around us, even when this hatred seems justified, and whether there are alternative approaches to deal with our environment. A typical example of this can be seen in the movie American History X, when the main character, Derek Vineyard, is isolated from the white supremacist community he once belonged to after serving time in prison for murder. During his time in prison, he associates with a similar group known as the Aryan Brotherhood. However, following the dramatic fallout with the people Derek once considered his brothers, he had to endure a long period of solitary confinement in prison. During these moments, he had enough time to reflect and even became friends with an African American inmate. These experiences changed him. They made him realize that his beliefs could have been mistaken. When spending time alone, we have the opportunity to broaden our perspectives and embrace new viewpoints, thereby altering how we perceive the world and our role within it. 3. Opportunity for greater autonomy. While we all rely on others to some extent, some people feel unsettled and abandoned when they have no one around, even for a short period. However, in such moments, there is an opportunity to develop autonomy. They feel unable to function on their own without the presence of others and cannot tolerate their own thoughts when alone. This makes them overly dependent on others, beyond what is necessary and reasonable. In the modern world, to exist, we do not always have to rely on the presence of others in most cases. In many individualistic and highly developed countries, meeting our basic needs doesn't necessarily have to involve leaving the house and interacting with others. Daniel Marston, a psychologist and author, has mentioned in an article that considering the level of social interaction and social connection is truly necessary to live and enjoy life. In reality, the requirements are not very demanding. You need the ability to interact with others to get work done, but you don't really need much else. Some people enjoy more social interaction, and that's fine. However, there are also those who prefer less interaction, and that's fine too. When thinking about this, how much social interaction do we actually need? Of course, everyone has different perspectives, but do we often go out to meet people not just because we like them, but also simply because we don't want to be alone? And could the feeling of deprivation we may experience in loneliness be a result of loneliness itself? Is it the loneliness itself, or is it the belief that we need someone with us? Do we believe, without knowing why, that we become weak when we're alone? If that's true, then relying on the presence of others to feel complete is an unreliable way of operating. When we crave connection, it could be a sign of dissatisfaction with what we have, because we're adding an uncertain factor into the equation, such as being alone on a Saturday night. So, it's not always the loneliness itself but how we perceive it. However, by embracing loneliness we can learn to appreciate it, turning it into a neutral or even enjoyable state. We can use time alone as a way to train ourselves to become more independent, meaning we learn to rely less on others and become more capable of meeting our own needs. Instead of feeling like empty drums waiting for others to fill us up, we make an effort to fill ourselves to experience completeness and satisfaction without relying on others. The idea that everything needed to feel happy is already within us has been experienced and supported by many people. In one of his poems, the poet Fernando Pessoa wrote, "Freedom is the ability to face loneliness. You are free when you can withdraw, not depending on anyone for money, friends, love, fame, or curiosity. These cannot develop without silence and solitude. If you cannot live alone, you are a slave. Even if you are creative and rich in mind and soul, you are still only a noble slave or a clever servant, but you are not truly free." End of quote. While we depend on each other in many aspects and social loneliness can have negative consequences, the value of spending time alone is worth contemplating. If we want to delve deeper into ourselves, become more independent and sincere thinkers, as well as more refined in solitary creativity, then dedicating time to ourselves can be seen as a worthwhile investment with significant benefits.
Thanks for watching.